Gossip. Today, you guys, we're gonna go through this letter that was sent to Obama by Pope Francis during his administration, and see what it has to say. Then I'll say what I gotta say. Um, it starts off talking about Pope, through his private attorney, claims civil authority over the United States of America. Order nullifying the office of pontiff. Well, the office of pontiff is it said the Pontiff Maximus was the chief highest priest of the College of Pontiffs in ancient Rome. So basically what the Vatican is letting you know that Rome still exists. Rome is not dead, and we are being controlled by Rome. All right, issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Services, the Provost Marshals, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. These organic American states of the Union, known as the United States of America, major, exercising plenary civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic, you guys. Not democracy. The Grand Army of the Republic and its successors under the guidance of Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, under the guise, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Services, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, etc. General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America major, stationed in North America, and shall join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic shall be charged as stipulated prior. All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union without exception. The GAR, which is the Grand Army Republic, is uniquely enabled by these orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purposes of securing the lives and property of the American states and American state citizens. The GAR is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. What's an American state citizen, if you haven't heard that term before? Well, it's something totally different from a United States citizen, because the United States citizen is governed under federal laws, where American state citizen is governed by state laws. What am I saying? Well, United States citizens are referred to as referred to our enemies of the state. What does that mean? Well, if you're a U.S. citizen, which is a corporate citizen, you are an enemy to the state citizen, meaning that you're a foreign entity on foreign soil. The same thing as the courthouses of today. They are foreign entities on foreign soil, because they've been operated under maritime law, which is the law of the sea. And here we stand on land, so we govern by the law of the land, and we're going back into common law. I'm gonna continue reading though. If required to take field position, local commanders shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reason for their presence on American state soil to ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of usurpation and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. Usurpation is basically stealing birthrights, you guys. All parties must be brought to understate the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as Libra Code, from the pen of the last Republic President Abraham. They telling you that Abraham was the last known Republican president. Since after Abraham, well, when they assassinated Abraham Lincoln, that's when the democracy took over. The demon workers. Libra Code lets you know that the government is operating under false pretenses. Libra Code is war occupation. So like when you go in a courthouse, everybody should be in military garb, just to give you a little description of what Libra Code entails. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as president of the United States Corporation. See, the United States is a corporation. It's not a continent. But it is a country. And the country is the District of Columbia. That's the country. But the continent itself is not the United States of America. Just for that's FYI. President of the States of America minor are owed any performance by the Joint Chief of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. All plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America remain in place, subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. That's the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. In case you didn't know, that's talking about the Moors. Mr. Obama is the president of a governmental service corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil. However, as veiled, I'm sorry if I don't know the word, as federal civilian service agencies, we require the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Ham to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States. So these people been getting heavily armed because they had plans on running in your house and taking your ass up out of here once martial law was enacted. That's why he's telling this fake government entity to seize. That's why he's filed us. That's why there's a civil war going on right now. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshal Services. And then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the U.S. mail and sworn to act as a constitutional officer. All other federal agency personnel are limited to unarmed service until further notice. What are they saying? Police officers are not allowed to carry guns anymore. But guess what they're doing? They're still toting guns. So guess what they're also doing? They're in violation. This is an international offense. Why is it international? Because you can't turn your government into the government. It don't work like that. You got to take it to somebody higher. You got to take your government to a higher authority, and the higher authority currently is the Pope or the Vatican. The war has been declared. I'm going to read that one more time. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of American states is the U.S. Marshal Service, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the U.S. mail and sworn to act as constitutional officers. All other federal agency personnel are limited to unarmed service until further notice. We direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to communicate these first two general civil orders directly to Mr. Obama, the members of the U.S. Congress, the administrators of all federal agencies, the members of the Supreme Court, and those acting as governors to compel their rapid understanding and cooperation. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizen as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American state soil will be understood as the result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land and will incur immediate judgment liquidating the assets of the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve in payment of the stipulated reparations. Such crimes shall be considered contract default, increasing the public debt subject to a bounty. So they telling you that if they dress up like cowboys out here and they bothering the Indians, they are in violation of crimes. They just told you that. And they also just disclosed to you that the police are employed by the bankers, International Monetary Fund, and the Federal Reserve. So that's where they get their jurisdiction from. And they have been told to disarm any and all corporate officers of the United States or any successor organizations inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes. All foreign officials operating as elected or appointed officials of the United States of America minor who support, condone, or promote such crimes against American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or other such states as may be willing to receive them. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Association, lawyers, who were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American states and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 in flagrant breach of trust. All such licenses are now extinguished. Members of the Bar Association are required to cease and desist assaults against the American states and American state citizens and shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation otherwise. Insomuch as corporate officers operating the United States of America Incorporated and the United States have contrived under conditions of fraud and systematic deceit to revenue the estates of the American states and living American state citizens to the foreign jurisdiction of the United States of America minor. They are found guilty of capital crimes, including acts of fraud and treason committed between 1933 and 1945. United States of America major is the Republic. The minor is the democracy. So committed between 1933 and 1945, and are condemned posthumously insomuch as elected officials operating in the United States of America minor have similarly committed war crimes against the American states and their peaceful inhabitants during the same time period. They stand condemned posthumously. No enforcement upon American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of Congress operating as the foreign government of the United States of America minor, nor as board of directors or board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All those estates erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, or which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America Minor and more recently to the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belong to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. All legal fictions entities, however structured and named after the American states and American state citizens, are returned to them in their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America Incorporated and the United States Incorporated, or by any foreign officials operating the United States of America Minor or the United Nations city state falsely claiming to represent them or have jurisdiction over them. We note that the current circumstances is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattel backing U.S. government debt in the wake of Civil War. African Americans. So now we know who the them are, the American state citizens. And they falsely claiming jurisdiction over them and falsely representing them, the lawyers, falsely representing you. They say that where am I at? Trying to find more reading now. They say 150 years ago, a criminal act took place, the commercial enslavement of African Americans all over again. You went from physical enslavement to commercial enslavement. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Like they don't give your ass a break, do they? They don't give you a break. You go from one enslavement to the next enslavement. And you gonna go to another enslavement if you don't get your mind right. The real talk, cause obviously if they went from one to the next, obviously they must have a third, cause it seemed like a running thing with them. So it says, so 150 years ago, a criminal act took place, the commercial enslavement of African Americans, who summarily claimed as chattel back in the U.S. government debt in the wake of Civil War. So everybody today get chattel loans, since but particularly, black people. Black people are definitely considered chattel, and they have backed the U.S. government off you. You know what? That is 23 point something billion something trillion. That is a lot of money. Do you hear me? $23 trillion in debt came off your backs. 23 trillion. That's a lot of bread. Now I ain't gonna say all of it came off your back, but it's still a lot that came off your back. You done paid a lot in. And we about to talk, and it's about to talk about your reparations. Let's go ahead. It say, despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, It has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state amongst the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves. Okay, what do they mean by expand? They talking about Europeans, by European listeners, to expand the ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle the circumstance in favor of the people. So what's been going on? Well, they've been holding everything in trust. That's why you gotta have a fishing license to go fish. You know what I'm saying? Although you are the beneficiary to the land, they still treat you as an enemy because you're a United States citizen. They're trading with the Enemy Act. That's why you gotta have a license to drive a car when the right to travel is free to everybody. You have to have a license to move, to go nowhere. But they consider it privileges under this democracy. But you love a democracy. You know, a place where they just where you just have privileges, no rights. I can't believe you people love a democracy. And they tell you to your face you only have privileges. What type of shit is that? You like being under that type of control? Will somebody give you a privilege? That's worse than a child. Cause if I'm a child, I would want my parents to give me some freedom. Not everything I do be a privilege. Minority. um, but there you have it. They just said a lot. You know what I'm saying? They telling African Americans that the United States has made a tremendous amount of money off your back and it's time for your reparations. This is saying what? This is the dissolving of the United States corporation. They are breaking it down. And like I said earlier, I'll repeat myself, a lot of states are going to go nation state, where it's going to be important that you are American state citizen, and not a U.S. citizen, because a U.S. citizen is a federal agent, and by you being a federal agent, you are enemy of the state, because you work basically for the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. And if you're a U.S. citizen, you are a part of a corporation. You're not one of the people. The people are state citizens. The people create the state. Okay? And there you have it. So they are recalled to settle the circumstances in favor of the people. That means they cannot perform any violent acts towards you whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that they won't. So let's keep that in mind. Um, African Americans, um, they are saying a lot to you. Pope Francis is really speaking a lot about you guys toward the end of this letter. You know what I'm saying? And to say it without being said is saying that African Americans are the allodial American citizens. It's also saying that American citizen is gonna be super important. And you also have what is a non-citizen national, which is also an American state citizen. Um, why does it keep mentioning American state citizens? Because American state citizen is very different from a U.S. citizen. American state citizen is a citizen that has taken an oath to abide by the Constitution. They're one of the people. American state citizen is one of the people. By law, so lawyers, you're U.S. citizens. Police officers are U.S. citizens. Anybody that's under the fictitious corporation, you're all considered U.S. citizens. And as long as you have the job that you have, you cannot be an American state citizen because you have taken oaths. A U.S. citizen is a citizen of the federal government, and by law, you have been made an enemy of the state under the Trading with the Enemy Act. And so, legally, United States citizens are, um, United States citizens are in trouble. Basically, as long as while this right here is enacted, you know what I'm saying, or once it become totally enacted, United States citizens are in trouble. So I guess, for lack of words, you should be trying to find out what is an American state citizen or a non-citizen national. For African Americans, it's you're by progeniture, and indigenous to America, you are automatically American state citizens, but you're also subjects of Morocco. And that's where you get your word America from, Al Morocco. Just to give you a little history lesson. Um, that is something you should know. You can also become a American state citizen, and that's just by declaring that you're a non-U.S. citizen and that you're a state citizen. So that means that if you are a South Carolinian, you're a South Carolinian, or Texas, you're a Texan, you're New York, New Yorker. You know that those are your states. That's a state citizen. California announcing themselves as a nation state is not new. More states are gonna start doing it. I've heard, because I live on the East Coast, I've heard South Carolina talk about a couple of years ago they was trying to develop their own currency, because they was planning on going nation state. So I guess my point is that this has been planned. So they're just acting out a role. Like nothing is new. Like nothing is new. It's all written. You know what I'm saying? It's written, and then people they just act it out. Because if you write something, or policy is the next part to come out the writing is acting. You got your script, and then you need to find your actors, the people to play it out. So the back and forth that be taking place about such and such, or this bill, or that act, or this law, that law, you know what I'm saying? A lot of this stuff is already known what's going to happen before it even begin to be debated. Before it even begin to be debated, they already know which way they're going. The debation is for the public eye. That's coming under this fictitious government you've been under. To pretend that we are arguing on behalf of your benefit, which is clearly wasn't the case, says so the Vatican, who has just taken over. And they took over because this was a fictitious government. And you have to wonder, like, why would they take over? Well, If they said it's fictitious or contrary to your belief, it was fictitious. You know, they did make you believe that, you know, they had the power to do this or the power to do that. You know what I'm saying? But that's all magic. Like I talked about in What's Magic. And in the mind, you know what I'm saying? The perception, power of perception. Perception is a powerful tool if it's used correctly. That's magic. That's magic. And so they have used the power of perception to get you to believe in something that was not real. And so now it's being dismantled. So in this dismantling, they probably gonna end up. Certain states are gonna join together and consider themselves as districts. So be aware of that, because that is coming. We're about to be dealing with digital currency on a mass scale. That's coming. You know what I'm saying? They talking about getting your digital wallets. If you hadn't heard Trump mention digital wallet, you know what I'm saying? So we about to go adopt this digital currency on a mass scale, and hopefully you've gotten some by now. And cause I did definitely talked about it in my beer virus show. If you haven't heard that, so that's where we at, you guys. Thank you guys for coming to gossip, and we'll holler.